deadlock. How to recover from deadlock, right? So the most common solution is to roll back one or more transactions to break the deadlock, right? So you are going to roll back a few transactions so that you can break the deadlock. So there are some solutions to recover from the deadlock. So the first solution is that you are going to select a victim. So given a set of deadlock transaction, we must determine which transaction has to be rolled back to break the deadlock, right? So we should roll back those transactions that will incur minimum cost, right? So given a set of transactions in deadlock, you need to roll back a transaction so that you will be able to break the deadlock. We should roll back a transaction that will incur minimum cost. So it is computed by how long the transaction has computed and how much longer the transaction will compute before it completes its designated task. And second criteria is like how many data items are being used by the transaction and how many more data items the transaction needs for its completion and how many more transactions will be involved in the rollback, right? So you are going to select a victim based on the minimum cost. You are going to identify a transaction which whose rollback incurs minimum cost based on the resources it has already consumed and the resources it needs for completion and how many transactions will be involved in a rollback and so on, right? So once you have identified a transaction that involves a minimal cost, right, you are going to roll back that particular transaction, right? So once you have identified the victim, you are going to roll back the particular transaction, right? So the simplest solution is a total rollback. You are going to abort the transaction and then restart it. However, it is more effective to roll back the transaction only as far as necessary to break the deadlock. So such partial rollback requires the system to maintain additional information about the state of all the running transactions, right? So you'll be able to perform either complete rollback or partial rollback of a particular transaction once you select a victim, right? So there is a keyword starvation in the deadlock. So in a system where the selection of victim is primarily based on cost factor, it may happen that the same transaction is always picked up as a victim, right? So as a result, the transaction never completes its designated task and it's known as starvation, right? So the starvation is that since you are going to choose a victim based on the cost factor, it is likely that the same transaction will be picked up as a victim many times, and the same transaction will be able to never complete its designated task, and it may lead to starvation. So we need to ensure that a transaction can be picked up as a victim only for a finite number of times.